Sophie Madden, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. You are my first recording of 2026.
Awesome. I'm delighted to be here.
And today we're talking about limitless collaboration. How do you feel about your superpower? And you've obviously had time to sit with it for a little while.
Do you know, I think I walked away from our chat, metaphorically, because we were sitting down and talking, and thought, collaboration, that doesn't sound much like a superpower. Like it doesn't, everyone else has got these like really exciting sort of superpowers. Collaboration sort of sounds a bit like I'm not sure it's something you sort of go out and wave a flag about. But then when I reflected on it, I thought about everything we do in our industry and everything that's key to success. And so much of it is about working with people, getting people involved, and just being part of the community. And so I'm a bit prouder about collaboration than I was after we had our first chat.
That's so interesting. So collaboration wasn't sexy enough for you?
Yeah, maybe not.
Okay. Did you have a little think about did it kind of spur you into a direction of actually this is who I am? Did it kind of make you reflect on what you think your superpower would be?
It just made me reflect on what drives me, what I enjoy doing, what drives me, what gives me energy, and why I show up every day. So it really made me reflect on that. And so where I landed with it was the human aspect of what we do that really drives and motivates me, because I just love working with people. I just love it. And so I was thinking, collaboration fits with that.
Nice. And just in terms of reflecting on that question of what drives me, the human element, you've got so many humans involved in your sphere and in your world, and there's so much going on at the moment everywhere. How do you kind of cope with the pressure of that?
Do you know, I think maybe my special talent should be more about compartmentalizing, because I'm very good at compartmentalizing, maybe slightly too good at it. So I have lots of incidences where, particularly when my children were young, where you're on at home and you've got it all nailed, and then you leave and then that door's shut. And then nothing happens, and you move on to, I'm in my work mode now. And so I'm the master at forgetting to go and pick them up and forgetting to show up for things, because it's like, oh, yeah, I know we agreed all of that, but now I've closed that door and I've opened a new one, and I'm completely focused on work and completely focused on what I'm doing now. And until I go home, I then open the door again and it's like, okay, I'm back on. So I think I'm very good at compartmentalizing.
And how has that changed as the years have gone on?
I think I've just got better at it, because I think as the years have gone on, there's more stuff that you need to compartmentalize, particularly as, the children get older and more complex, and parents get older, and your private life or your personal life becomes more complex, which sounds crazy because you never think when you're younger that it will, but it actually does. And so, and work gets more complex and bigger, and so the need to sort of turn on and turn off and be able to show up in every context is really important.
And how do you do that? How do you turn on and turn off? Because I think that's something so many people struggle with.
I think that, and I don't always do it well, so I'm definitely not the master of this, but I try. I think that I just try to make sure that I'm there in the moment for the people that I'm supposed to be there for. So I definitely try and go, okay, well, just because, I've walked out of something that was quite troubling or disturbing or exciting or however that was, that I'm turning up for the next thing where I'm tuned into that person, I'm trying to listen, I'm trying to be focused, and I'm trying not to be distracted. So I'm pretty good at not being obsessed about my phone in a meeting, and I'm pretty happy to, be turned off from all of that and try and be focused for that particular moment and that particular person, because I think that that's the least I can do for that person. Like, that's the least I can do for the people in that room, is make sure that, they're turning up, they're giving their time, their attention. The least I can do is do that too.
I love that. I think the the service that you're giving other people there is really important part of, because there's nothing more frustrating than when you're talking to someone and they're on their phone, or you're in a meeting and you're thinking, this person's not even listening. Why am I here? And just, it's about respect, right? Respecting the people around you.
Yeah, it definitely is. I remember when I was working for, I think it was Vodafone, and being a telco, they had this culture of using phones, and it was in meetings, and it was very it was early days to Messenger and things like that. And I remember being so shocked going to a meeting where I think an agency was presenting to us, and it was a big important presentation. I think we'd travelled to another country, and we were there, and this country was this market were presenting to us, and the culture at the time in the company I was working at, they were all like messaging each other in the meeting about the content that the person was presenting. And it was such a shock to me because it was culturally not something that I had come across before, and I was quite new to the role. And it was just so rude, it was like we're so distracted by the messaging and talking about what this person's presenting to us, rather than genuinely being there, giving them our time and attention, and actually asking them directly the questions or challenging them on assumptions and stuff. And I definitely walked away going, that's just not a culture that I respect or like and that I want to be part of.
I think most people feel like that, like your attention. I think that's why I love doing these podcasts so much, because it's like an hour and it's like just about you. And by the time you leave, you'll be overwhelmed and like thinking, should I have said that? And you know what? It's the same battle that every woman goes through at the end of it. But it's like that full focus on yourself for an hour. And not just, I don't mean me giving you that. I mean, you're giving yourself an hour's worth of attention and talking just about you. And I think, to your point, you love giving it to other people. But today we're gonna focus in on Sophie, which is quite exciting.
Quite horrifying, actually, if I'm completely honest, because you know that when you and I talked about this, I was like, there is no way that we can talk for an hour about me.
How do you feel about that now?
I'm still horrified by it.
And why is that?
I just think it'll be boring for an hour to talk about me.
Why is that?
I think I'd be bored for an hour talking about me, so I can't imagine why anyone else wouldn't be.
Yeah, nice. Oh, well, so hopefully you can have a little bit of fun. We're gonna hit the questions. So I've got a question for you, which I've always been interested in. What's it like reporting into a board?
Wow, that is a question. I am so lucky with my board because they are all people that I have a lot of time and respect for. They all care about why they're there, and they all bring something to the table, and they're very supportive. So I think I've been exposed to other boards that their composition hasn't been there or that support hasn't been there. So I think I'm incredibly fortunate in the situation I'm in with the structure that we have. I think it's challenging when you're reporting into a big group of people as opposed to one person, because you're managing lots of stakeholders, you're managing lots of expectations. So that brings its own complexity to it. But I think what it does do is it stretches you. I'm a big one for. I like feedback. I like people challenging an assumption. I mean, obviously in a nice way, but I enjoy that. I enjoy being stretched. I enjoy learning new things. And so for me, that reporting into a multiple of different people who are going to have different opinions and different lenses on things, of how they approach it, and so they'll have different questions. I enjoy that.
And how do you manage it though?
I don't know. I've never really thought about how I manage it. How do I manage it? I manage it by making sure that I have a relationship with each director, in the sense that I try and understand them. I try and understand what their objectives are, what they may be trying to achieve themselves from it. So I do spend a lot of time trying to listen and hear and get to know the individuals, but also get to know what their specialties are so I can lean on them. I mean, it's a board that that definitely leans in and wants to contribute. So I have the luxury of being able to go to the different members of the board, depending on their expertise, to get their input, to get their advice, to get their counsel on stuff. So I probably manage it that way. Just making I don't spend a lot of time sort of seeding stuff with everybody individually, because I just don't have the time for that. But I do spend a lot of time trying to make sure that I've got input where I need it, so that I pre-think a lot about, well, what are they going to ask? What are they going to want to know? And then trying to work out, well, how do I answer that question? So a lot of prep.
The reason I'm asking you is because it's like stakeholder management at its finest, right? Because you've got the board that you've got to report into, then you've got your team, and then there's almost like an accountability from the rest of the industry as well. Like in terms of stakeholder management, your sphere is pretty huge.
Yeah, and I think I quite like stakeholder management. I think that because I like to listen to people, I think I have a lot of empathy, which I think sometimes can hold you up and hold you back, because you can get very caught up in empathy and worrying about how people feel, which is something that is a bit of a watch out for me, because I can get very caught up in that. And but because I'm quite an empathetic person, I do like to go and try and listen to people and look at different perspectives and think about things from different angles. I find that really interesting. So for me, that's the bit that I try to make sure that I've got, my fingers on the pulse, I guess, to some degree. And I've got a lot of amazing people around me who help me do that.
And what are the big things that are happening over at the MFA at the moment that you can share with us? What are the big topics?
Oh gosh, there's always so many big topics to work through. Do you know, I think one of the things, and this isn't necessarily an MFA topic, but it's a topic for me at the moment, is I think we all need a bit more fun at the moment. I think that there's so much going on in our industry, in our world, and in our personal lives that I feel like we just need a little bit of fun. And I think that if we can inject some of that fun into the stuff we're doing, I think for me that's really important, because you need, everyone's showing up every day to work in the industry, to do the work. If we can try and make it so that they walk out of the day energized and excited and a bit fun as much as they walk into the day, or re-energized, then that would be a good thing. So that for me personally is important at the moment, just to lighten things up a little bit is what I'm trying to do. It's early days though, because it's only February and I've only been back 2 weeks. So let's see how much fun I feel in 2 weeks' time or 2 months' time. And in terms of the actual bigger sort of things on the MFA's agenda, I mean, obviously working through how we evolve and shape what we do and how we do it at the moment, with all the different changes going on. I don't know, we did that big paper with Katie Rigg-Smith on the workforce of the future for our industry. So working through, well, what does that actually mean? How do we evolve and equip everyone in this sort of new ways of working?
Can you share any findings from that?
The key findings were around just making sure that we're all equipped and knowledgeable, not just, we spend a lot of time focused on upskilling the people with less than 5 years in the industry. So a bit more focus on actually broadening that out, so that everyone feels comfortable and equipped with sort of new technology and new ways of doing things. But more importantly, the big theme was around the human side of what we do, the creative side of what we do is critically important to, that we build up and stretch those skills even more so than normal. And that's part of what our industry is great at anyway. So that would be a focus moving forward, is just making sure we don't, we really lean into that side of what we do as an industry. And then there's other implications as well around, how we evaluate the success of our industry and how we promote that and talk about that. And equally, there's a piece around how we remunerate and compensate our industry. So there's a couple of different work streams that have sort of fallen out of that.
Tell me about the remuneration one.
Well, it's early days, and we don't set the MFA, we don't set how people remunerate themselves, but our role in something like that will be trying to make sure our people are equipped to have those, to actually create those different models, and also that we provide them with the data and the information in order to develop those different models. So we do a lot of business intelligence reporting that's probably not seen more broadly in the industry, but is very focused on our sort of finance and leader community. So it's making sure that those sort of data gathering and business intelligence parts of what we do are help our members to create what those right models should be for their own businesses.
And so I feel like fun was such an interesting answer, which I just want to go back to, because it was the last thing I expected you to say. I feel like every time I chat to you, you're like, we're lobbying the government for this. We're doing all this like reporting and data and everything that you just kind of followed up with. Why is it so important that we lean back into the fun of the industry?
Well, why do you think it would be important?
I think that the thing that used to make our industry so great was I used to say to people like, I can't believe that I actually get paid to do this. Like when I was in my last role, I genuinely felt I didn't have a real job, because I just loved the people that I worked with. I had such a good time. And I feel like life is so short and we spend so much time at work that I agree that it's just such a fundamental part of what we do. I actually think the reason the industry has lost some of its fun, one, the pressures and, everything that's kind of going on. But one of the reasons we've lost our fun is because when COVID happened, I remember having a talk with loads of kind of like more senior people, and they were like, can't wait to get back out drinking again and like get the culture back. And I remember, because I'd been doing a lot of mental health work at the time, going, that's not going to cut it anymore. That's not what people are going to want to do. And I got quite a bit of pushback on these calls that I was on. And yeah, we got back and no one wanted to kind of really do the drinking and the pub days anymore. It was kind of changed quite a bit significantly, depending on kind of levels and years of experience. And I just found that we didn't pivot enough in that point to go redefine what fun is and what fun looks like now and what people are actually wanting. So I think there's almost playing catch up post-COVID of what fun looks like and what fun is. That would be my take on it. What about you?
Well, it's pretty much for that reason. I mean, when I first started in the industry, which was a really long time ago, which I'm sad to say, it was like so cool to work in this industry, and you were like, wow, look, I get to go to a radio station and record a podcast. Like it was just all so cool and amazing. And, look, I saw my ad up on a billboard and then, and I had this community of people around me that were, that are my friends and are still my friends. And that was just great. And I think that, we did lose a bit of that in COVID. And so for me, it's bringing that back, because I know a lot of people that work in industries that are nothing like our industries, and they're not fun at all. And I had my daughter working, while she was doing at uni, she did a bit of work for us, and she now works in public health. And she came to me after she'd sort of started her sort of, public health proper job, going, you've done me a big disservice. Like, and I'm just like, what have I failed as a mother now on? And she was like, I thought all jobs were like what you guys do. And she's like, but now I'm in an industry where, we have to buy our own birthday cakes and we have to pay for, going to our own Christmas parties and it was just such a different world to her. And she's like, I had no idea. And it just reminded me that, we sort of lose sight with sort of how, what our industry is about and how much fun we can have.
I love that. And you can pause on this question for a moment because it might be hard to answer, but I'm going to ask you to give me some advice for each of the different kind of levels in our industry in terms of age, because I think there's so much going on at the moment. And I think that you have such a broad perspective of how everyone's feeling. So if we go in that kind of more junior cohort, what's going on for them at the moment and what do they need to hear? What advice do you have for them?
I think what I'm hearing from that more inexperienced cohort is they're under a lot of pressure, which all levels are. So they're under a lot of pressure. They're feeling that pressure. They're still excited about their careers and the opportunities with their careers, but they're confused about what that could look like, particularly around the AI piece and sort of how the industry is navigating that. So they're excited, but they're confused and they're worried about, well, where does my future go, and is there a future, and how do I navigate this? So my advice to them would be around, don't be so worried about that. Like, there will be, you will have a role in the future. You have roles now. And to take advantage of the fact that this industry has got so much training and upskilling that they have access to, which not many other industries do. So I'd be leaning in and going, yeah, okay, absolutely. I'm going to take advantage of all these tools and this support and this sort of, programs that we have in the industry in order to shore up my future, and I'd be leaning into it.
Nice. And then what about that kind of middle tier?
The middle tier, which I guess is what, the 5+.
Yeah, I feel like we're doing Goldilocks and the Three Bears here.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, right, the middle tier. That sounds horrible, the middle tier. I think for the more experienced people, I think what I'm hearing, and it's probably more on a personal level, is just that there's a lot weighing them down at the moment. There's a lot going on in their personal lives, which is, hard to then, I guess, balance out with what's happening, with a job and a career and putting and leaning into that. So for me, there's that pressure of, I'm trying to show up at home and I'm trying to show up at work, and that can be hard. And so, for me, I think that's the biggest bit of feedback I'm getting from them, is just help me balance that out. My advice to them is, I've never liked that word, balance it out, because I don't think you can. Certainly from my perspective, and I'm always trying to be careful here, because I think everyone's so individual with their situations and what they're navigating and trying to balance. And so I'm always very cautious to go, this is what works for me, but also this is what works for me right now. Because one of the things I've learned is that what works for me today does not work for me necessarily tomorrow. And so you have to be able to sort of go, okay, I'm going to have to change it up now. Something else has happened in my world or at my work, and now I'm going to have to think differently. So just not being so rigid and being a little bit flexible and just trying to work out something that's going to work for you today would be my sort of piece of advice. And giving up this idea of you're trying to balance two sides of something, because, for me anyway, my work and my sort of outside work pretty much are all merged together. Most of my friends I've made in the industry, most of, so my cohort is very industry based, and there's a real, that line is really fuzzy and grey, and so I've never been able to go, okay, work, life, balance the two and get them, because it sort of ebbs and flows and it's all sort of merged in together.
And finally, executive leadership section.
The executive leadership section. I think that being a leader doesn't really matter whether it's in this industry or any industry. It's tough today. I think I reflected over the COVID period being a leader, and the things that people expected you to know, and they were just random things, and people would be coming to you asking you to solve these things that are so far outside your remit, and you'd be like, why do you think I would know that? Or why do you think I would sort of be able to do that? And so for me, there's this piece about being a leader that everyone expects it's you to sort of stretch into all these areas, and for me, I don't think that's always possible. And so I see leaders a lot trying to be trying to be everything for everybody, at the expense of maybe themselves, and not that I want to use that balance word, but really sort of giving it all, and then maybe at the expense of themselves, their stress, their health, and for me that's one of the biggest watch outs I think for leaders at the moment.
And if you were going to talk to them directly, for anyone listening, what would you say to them?
I would say that our industry is really unique in the sense that we have this sort of cohort of leaders that are connected and know each other really well. I think that's really unusual when I've dealt in other industries. And so I think that I would say that we have the opportunity to lean on each other a little bit more, I know they talk about vulnerability and be vulnerable, and I don't necessarily mean that, but just to lean on each other a little bit more, to share the burden a bit more.
That's why we're doing the event in March, just to bring everyone together and go, it's tough out there. We're all in this. Listen to that kind of Goldilocks and the Three Bears that I just made you go through. What advice would you then add on to Goldilocks if you're Goldilocks? What advice would you give yourself right now?
Oh, what advice would I give myself right now? It's so easy giving advice, and it's not so easy actually putting it into practice. And I'm the worst at that. I'm so good at going, this is what we should all be doing, and this is and I never do any of it. And so I'm the biggest hypocrite in that regard. Very conscious of that. I think that I am the worst when it comes to working habits. I'm a shocker for late night working and getting sort of going down the rabbit hole and getting immersed in it. And for me, that's my biggest advice. And maybe that's why I focused on fun, because maybe I was trying to talk to myself, going, bring in the fun, have a bit more fun this year. Because, for me, that's my biggest watch out for 2026 is just try and pull back on doing that, because it's really not good. It's really unhealthy, and it's a really bad role modelling to be doing.
How's that making you feel?
As in knowing I don't do it?
Yeah.
Do you know what? There's 50 million things that I'm so conscious of the fact that I should be doing that I don't do, that I try not to. I'm the worst for if someone makes a suggestion and I'll be like, yes, you're right, I should be doing that. Absolutely. And it just goes on this big list of something that sits on my shoulder of all the things that I think I should be doing that I may be not doing or not doing so well. I think I'm pretty good at then going, shut up, put that to a corner. But everyone has that, that voice that comes up at some point to go, oh, here's all the things that you're not so good at, Sophie, that you could be working on that you're not.
I think there's that constant pressure as well of like they say knowledge is power, right? But I sometimes find that the more I learn about what I should be eating, how I should be recycling, what I should be doing for my care routine, there's that constant feeling of nothing's ever enough. So it's like being selective on what are the things that I know that I need to do for me that's really personal. And I think it's quite insightful that your eyes kind of lit up a little bit when you connected the fact that the fun comment was for you and that's what you needed to hear right now. What does fun look like for you? Because I feel like we have to be careful of like, I've had someone on here before and she was like, we spoke about self-care. And we got offline and she went, Chloe, can I be honest with you? I don't know what self-care is. Like, what do you want me to do? Go for a massage? Like, that's going to help. That's not going to help me. And it was really insightful for me because I kind of had that conversation with her of like, well, no, we need to work out what that looks like for you. So that's why I'm asking you that very weird question of what is fun for you, Sophie Madden?
Wow. Okay. I think that one of the things that I've got better at as I've got older is definitely going, this is me. So whilst I talked about, there's all this list of all the things that, oh yeah, I could do that better and I should do that better. There's a long list. I am quite comfortable with myself to going, yeah, but you know what? This is me. And I'm doing the best I possibly can. And sure, I can do things better. I know I can do so many things better, but okay with striving to what I want to strive for, and accepting that I'm not going to be perfect at everything, because nobody can be. So I think I'm comfortable with that. I think when it comes to fun, I'm a bit of a boring person. Like I'm an introvert, so I'm on a lot at work, so I need to go off a lot out of work, which makes me very boring for my poor husband, because I'll be on all day and then I get home and I'll be like, I just can't, I just need to be left alone, not spoken to, read a book, re-energize, so there's a lot of, I need to do quite a lot of that in order to sort of recharge. But my fun is always being either connected to my family or my friends. So fun for me is just being I can be doing anything, but I want to be doing it with my family and my friends. And for me, that's what's fun. Is just so there's always a lot going on in my house. I've got 3 kids. They're older. They're adults. So there's a lot of activity with them and people coming over. And then I've got sisters and friends, and so there's just a lot of activity at home. And so for me, that's what's fun.
So just piecing together what you said, in 2026, is there like quite a desperate need to preserve some energy so that you're not giving all your extrovert moments of fun to work and actually saving more for your husband, for example, when you get... Is that what I'm hearing? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, probably.
Is that something?
This is a good counselling session.
Well, I just think it's interesting because you touched on 2 parts then, right? There was like that element of like, this is how I get my fun. And then you're like, but I don't have any time for that side of me right now because I'm just so exhausted by the time I get home. And I think that's the reason I'm bringing it up, Sophie, is because I'm seeing it everywhere. Like this conversation feels so familiar to me, but normally we've not got mics on, of like, we have that level of self-awareness of this is what we need, but actually we need to name it. And I love the fact that almost your word of the year for this year now is like fun. Like, how do I... And it's not just about creating the fun, it's about creating the boundaries that allow for the fun in the first place.
Absolutely. And I think, it's interesting when you ask me what is fun, because, as I said, it's people, it's doing things with people, it's being social, it's spending time with the family. I think for me, the other side of fun is also about learning and expanding. And I'm a big one for, I love reading, and I read a lot, and I try and read I try and read the papers every day, and I try and make sure I read multiple ones so I get different perspectives. And I'm doing the AICD's director's course at the moment, and whilst you wouldn't normally go, well, that's fun, but just that idea of learning and stretching for me is fun. So there's a lot of different facets of fun that to balance in there.
What are the biggest things you've learned throughout your career?
Oh, God. What's the biggest things I've learned throughout my career? Do you know, aside from the craft of what you do, I think the biggest things you learn throughout your career is just about you as a person. And I've learned probably the most amount of things I've learned from my children. I think I've become a lot better as a boss and a leader from having having to deal and navigate through them, because they're the litmus test. They shine a mirror up to you, and they don't tolerate shit. So you can't get away with a lot when with children. So I think for me, that's where I've learned the most.
That's really nice to hear. My friend's pregnant with twins at the moment, and she's so worried about what it's going to mean for her career. And actually just hearing you say, actually, it's going to be good for your career in terms of you're going to learn who you are as a leader and how you want to show up and become more accountable to that. That's actually a nice little
you said
thing.
that much nicer than I did.
I was just listening. I was just listening to you. What have been the biggest challenges for outside? Because I kind of feel like, so I want to understand this fun point. We're gonna come back to that. But I want to understand the challenges and the growth that's led to the woman sitting in front of me today.
Okay.
I let you talk about the MFA to start with to ease you in. Now we're going full Sophie.
About as in the challenges with the MFA.
No. With you throughout your career and your journey. So I'm not letting you talk about the MFA anymore. I eased you in with that.
Oh, okay. All right. I get it now. The challenges. I don't know. I'm not a look back person. I'm a look forward person. I don't believe in regretting something you've done because you've just done it and you just move on and you work through. So I'm not a big one for going back and sort of going, oh, this is what, happened and I took the wrong course here or stuff. But I think what challenged me? So I'm not sure I'd go, do you know what, here are all the challenges I had to overcome. I would say more that there's things that definitely shaped me though and influenced me. I grew up overseas. I moved here, God, I think I was 17 after I finished school on my own. So that was challenging and different because I had to sort of, get a job, and support myself and be in a new country and not know any people. And so I think that's probably where, somehow I latched onto this industry. And that's probably why my cohort of friends is very industry based, because I didn't know anyone else in Australia. So, and so that obviously shaped my direction, not just my direction of my career, but my direction of my peers and my cohort and my friends. But also I think starting out, not having a background in this country sort of, shaped me as well in terms of sort of how I looked at things. And then, my career's gone through, I started off in agencies. I've worked in, independent agencies. I've worked in big agencies. I've worked in small agencies. I've then spent a lot of my career client side. I've worked in different countries. I've worked in different markets in Australia, and I've worked, as I said, client side, and now so I've done a number of different things. The thing that has always struck me is the opportunities that I've had in this industry, and whether they're opportunities because I've created them, whether they're opportunities because I fell into them or stumbled across them or people helped me get them. Either way, there's been a lot of opportunities there to do lots of different things and to shape my direction. And I'm very grateful for that.
I feel like you and I are always like me too when we chat, but like I've got a saying that I live by, which is always do the thing that scares you most. And I feel like you've got a similar attitude in terms of like, just say yes.
Absolutely. Because I think that, there's been a few times where I've gone and worked overseas. Most of them have all been like, yeah, okay, why not? And, certainly my more recent one, which wasn't that long ago, wasn't that recent, but, most people were like, oh my God, because my children were quite old. Like my daughter was, I think, in year 6 and I was sort of like, yeah, that's a great opportunity. Let's just go. And, why not? And I think that's definitely put me in good stead because I've learned a lot. I've explored stuff and a decision, if you make a decision and you try it out and it's not quite right, you can just move in a different direction. Like nothing is concrete.
And I think people get so caught up in the fear of decision making. And to your point, you just kind of, if you go for it and then work out how you're going to do it afterwards. That's
Absolutely.
The way I live my life.
And I'm always that person that goes, what's the worst thing that can happen here? It's like when I used to be terrified of presenting. Being an introvert, I was really shy at school. I think my parents at one point never thought I'd ever speak, and so, presenting to me was absolutely terrifying. And that whole premise of, yeah, but if you do it, what's the very worst thing that can happen? And doing that with every decision for me is definitely sort of my, okay, where could this go really badly? And if it does, what would I do about it? So I think for me, that's put me in good stead.
can almost like that control, right? Change management of your own life.
Yeah.
I like that thought. And I love what you're saying around, you reframed it to, I said, what were the challenges? You were like, no, what are the situations that shape me? And to your point around moving your kids when they were a particular age, like when they sit here on their podcast one day, they're going to say, oh, one of the things that shaped me was, mum got a job abroad and we did this. And I think that one of the things I've learned from all the podcasts is all the women kind of talk about shame and guilt and not being around, or different kind of things that, like, being a parent kind of comes with all the guilt and the shame that comes with it. But it's always, as when they get older, they talk about the fact that they're so proud of their kids, and those are the moments that actually shape them. But when you're in it, it's like, I can't believe I'm moving my kids. I feel terrible with it. We can't possibly do this. But it's hindsight. We kind of learn the reason of life in hindsight.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think maybe I'm just not as nice as everyone else because I don't think I've had that same level of shame. I mean, there's always been a little bit of guilt, but definitely haven't had that level of shame. And maybe because my children are older now, but the amount of times that, I've, apparently ruined their lives by decisions that I have made or my husband and I have made together, I can't even count. Like, the accusations of, I could have played for Chelsea Football Club if only you kept us in Ireland. And, if there's so many of those sort of accusations. And you just sort of, one of my kids is like, I did year 3, 4 times because we moved to so many different countries in that one year or whatever, and you just go, yeah, but look at how resilient that's made you, look at how strong that's made you. And so for me, I've always just tried to flip it and go, yeah, but look at how much of a better human it's made you, because you've had to learn how to navigate, going to new schools, making new friends, new social groups, and so I've always tried to flip it to them to go, look at the positive side of this, look at the opportunities rather than wallowing in the, oh, woe is me. I'm not a big one for the woe is me.
And if you were going to talk to the mum that are listening in, or the parents that are listening in, what would you say to them right now, as someone who's done it or doing it?
I would definitely say that I'm not the mother role model. Like my children would say, oh my God, Mum, like I'm the one where I don't have my kids on the 360 thing. They have me on there because they're trying to I'm very unreliable, and they'll ring me up going, can you pick me up? And I'll be like, yeah, sure. And then I'll completely forget them as soon as I hang up the phone. And so they're tracking me to go, I can see you haven't left yet. You haven't, So I definitely wouldn't look to me to be the mother role model. I would just go, no parent is perfect. No parent is going to make all the right decisions. You just have to do the best you can and forgive yourself for the stuff that you mess up.
I'm going to say something which you might make me take out of this. But I can't not say it. This podcast is about self-belief. And there's been multiple times throughout the conversation where you've said, I'm not the nice one, or I'm not the poster child for this, or I don't do this very well. And I've put all the podcast transcripts, obviously not this one because we're recording it now, but I've put all the podcast transcripts through ChatGPT and said, does this woman believe in herself, and what is she not sharing? And I did it for my one. And it said, this woman has self-belief as long as she's adding value. If she's not adding value, then, and building on someone's transformation, she feels irrelevant, right? That's mine. And I'm reading this from ChatGPT and I'm like, this is brutal, but it's brutally honest. And I'm thinking about what I was going to say when I put yours through. I'm going to just pause there and see what you think it might say based on what I've just said.
Oh, I don't. That's a great question. And it's funny that you're calling me out on it, because I actually do have self-belief. And so I wonder if ChatGPT would pick up on that I don't like talking about myself. I can be very self-deprecating. I tend to be quite humble is a word that's used about me a lot, but I don't think that should be confused for not having self-belief and not being confident in this is who I am, take me as I am. and as much as I say, oh, I don't use me as the mother role model because I genuinely think that every mother is their own role model and they shouldn't mirror them someone else. But equally, I'm very happy with the mother that I am to my family and my children. And hopefully they would say that they're happy too. And if they're not, sucked in because this is the mother they got.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Can we come back to the self-deprecating? I want to just focus on that bit. And it isn't necessarily a negative thing, but if I think of all of what I've read around self-belief and women advocating for themselves and putting everyone else forward, it's so interesting because I would say all those lovely things that other people would say about you around, like, she's so humble, she gets so much shit done, most collaborative woman I've met, like. But it's so interesting to hear that you've used the word earlier, role model, but then the self-deprecation. And for me, I'm just like, it doesn't feel aligned.
Yeah, maybe because I just don't want to be a role model.
Okay, great. Let's stick.
It's not something I've ever. Maybe it's because I think that everyone has their own path and their own journey. And I remember sitting in a session, this was years ago, and it was it was two women, and they were talking about being mothers in the industry and giving advice. It was like on one of those women days, and it was about being motherhood advice. And both these women were talking about how to balance your career and your home life, and how to have a family and how to have a child. And both of them said that that they had both got pregnant and had children and gone back to work after 6 weeks. Both of them had coincidentally done that. Very short maternity leave periods. And they were like, if you take any longer, you're going to sacrifice your career, and you're taking too long and it's wrong and you shouldn't do that. And I just remember sitting there going, how dare you? How dare you say that to all these people in this room? Because it is so individual, and maybe maybe that's not right for that person. And so for me, I really firmly believe that you can't do that. You can't say this is what everyone should do, and because what about all those people that didn't take? I didn't take 6 weeks, and I'm quite happy with my career and where I've gone, and so I'm very cautious, and I really don't. I'm cautious about saying to people, this is the right way, here's the right path, because everyone is so very different. And I know that I'm really different from other people. And what's right for you, Chloe, is not necessarily going to be right for me. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that my way's wrong or your way's wrong. They're just different. And so for me, maybe when I think about role model, I'm thinking more around telling people what they should do and how they should do it, because I don't think anybody really has the right to do that.
I love that answer. I'm so glad that I asked you that question. Thank you so much. Do you know what? I just saw the Sophie that's lobbying there. Do you know what I mean? I just saw that the passion come through in you then, and I just really enjoyed that moment. So thank you so much. On that, what else makes you angry? What else are you passionate about? Because I just saw a side to you then that I was like, hell yeah, like I really enjoyed it. What else is kind of your key passions?
Do you know, I was, and this probably is pretty much what I was talking about before. I hate being told what to do. Like it's everyone laughs at me at home because, if the minute someone starts being patronizing to me, like I can be really humble, but don't be patronizing to me. Just because I'm prepared to sit there and listen and want to bring people along on the journey doesn't mean that I want to be told and told in a way that I find insulting. So for me, that's something I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about having a bit of control because there's so many things in life that you cannot control at all. So for me, trying to shape a little bit of control in whether that's about at home or my career or just how I do things, that personal control is something that I really care a lot about, trying to keep it. You can't always, but just trying to control the things that you can control, because there's so much you can't control, is something that I'm passionate about. And yeah, I hate being told what to do.
And how do you, because I'm really bad at that as well, how do you manage that in a situation like we were talking about earlier with your ecosystem? Because you are so collaborative and you are so good at getting everyone to kind of like I'm always blown away by the amount of work the MFA do, and like the how tiny the team is.
Tiny team.
Yeah, tiny team, but like the power in that group. And I genuinely believe it's because you lead that team in such a collaborative way that is happy to be flexible and nimble, but that partnered with your don't tell me what to do. I'm just interested to understand how that you manage that, because that's such a incredible skill.
I think it's more around it. Maybe don't tell me what to do is a little bit misleading, because it's more around how you're told things and how people communicate with you, and just a little bit of mutual respect maybe as well. But I don't respond well to dictatorship, I guess, is probably, but I don't think anyone really does, but some people cope with it better than others. But I do get a little bit frustrated by it. I think that I'm a big believer for letting people fail, and I'm also, one of my great fears is that I'm not being open-minded, and I don't know why it's a thing for me, but it really is. And so with everything and all the decisions we make and everything that we're considering doing, I'm really worried about being the black hat. Or being that person in the room going, oh yeah, but we did that, and 5 years ago we tried that and it didn't work. Like, I don't want to be that person. And I tend to be quite, all of my roles, well, the majority of my roles have been quite long roles, and so I'm really conscious of that. So that's probably in part how I sort of navigate things, is just trying to make sure that I'm always being open, maybe actually too much, but I'm trying to be open-minded. I'm trying to make sure that we're considering lots of different things, lots of what ifs, what could happen, what are the consequences, what are the unintended consequences. Let's think this through. Just because we did it before, maybe we could have done it differently or executed. The team gets frustrated with me because I'm always, we'll finish something and I'll be like, yeah, that's great. Okay, how could we have done that better? And they're like, can we just have 5 minutes? Can you just give us 5 minutes just to celebrate how awesome that was? It's like, okay, let's do that for 5 minutes. But now, and it's never meant as a criticism or anything, but I always want to sort of go, how do we push that further? How do we make that even better? It was brilliant, but how do we make it even more brilliant? And that's something that I'm quite passionate about.
I think you care so much as well. Like, I think the reason you get so much done, to your point, you're always going, what can we do next? How can we make this better? Is because you genuinely give a shit. Like, I whenever I have a conversation with you about the industry, you're such a good ambassador for it. Like, it's, the face of the industry. It's such a important role. And I think if you didn't care as much as you do, you'd probably get half the amount, done.
And I do genuinely care, and I mostly care about the people, and because that's the bit that probably inspires me the most, because I'm just blown away by the amazing people that I'm surrounded by. There's my team who are amazing, but everyone we deal with in this industry is just so smart and go-getters, and I'm just in awe of so many of them. And so, and I just think I'm really lucky to be around this cohort of people that are just so inspiring and smart and good at what they do, and genuinely wanting to do it really well. And for me, that is so energizing.
That's the fun, right? That's the fun.
It's definitely the fun. And I think we're really lucky, because I think that's quite unique to just have this amazing cohort of people. There's very few people that I meet. In fact, very rarely would I ever meet anyone that I didn't like. Like, it's very unusual for me to meet someone and go, oh, I don't like that person, or they're not nice. I genuinely like everyone I deal with, and I think they bring something important to the table.
Different perspectives. Right, you said we were going to not have anything to talk about, but I've just gone over time.
Oh, how funny.
So I'm going to have to ask you our final question. But the irony of that, Sophie, because I feel like I've got like another 10 things that I just want to kind of like dig into. We ask the last question, which is always, who is the limitless woman that you would like to celebrate?
Do you know, I knew you were going to ask me this, and so because you did warn me, and I was really trying to think of who that person is, and I'm really struggling with this, and not because there aren't any, but there's just far too many. Like, pretty much every woman I deal with is just absolutely amazing and brings something to the table. So I'm struggling to sort of land on one person. But, you know, I'm going to nominate someone that I work with who's slightly outside the industry, and it's Jess Havard, who you know from Rare Productions, because I think she's awesome and very brave, and I'm so proud that she set up her own business and that we could be a small part of that, and that she's doing so well.
I feel a bit emotional you say that. I love Jess. Sophie, honestly, I could talk to you for ages. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for all you do for the industry as well. Like, this is an industry podcast, and the fact that I get to sit here with someone that's like constantly trying to make it better and constantly giving a shit about the people in it is just such a blessing. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, and I can't believe we spoke for so long, and I feel like I've had a really good therapy session.
Thanks, Sophie.